What if Anakin received a white Kyber crystal on Ilum? Let's start today's story when Anakin is 12 years old as he travels to Ilum along with the rest of his youngling class to find his Kyber crystal. Anakin enters the cave with the other younglings, but unlike them, he feels no pull to any crystal. The minutes slip away into hours as the cave door begins to close on Anakin. He could hear his friends cheering that they'd found their crystals, but Anakin was alone, and panic began to rise in him. This is arguably the first time something hasn't come easy to him. He believed that being the chosen one meant that a crystal would appear instantly, but he was wrong. But that made him think that maybe it was meant to be difficult for him. Maybe the Force is testing him. As Anakin begins to meditate on this thought, a faint glow emerges deep within the ice, brighter than the others. As Anakin looks towards it, it wasn't the normal blue or green that every other Jedi received. It was stark red, the color of the Sith. Anakin approaches with caution, very confused. But as he reaches the glow, the world around him dissolves into a Force vision. He sees himself standing between two armies, the Jedi and the Sith. Both sides stretch their hands towards him, but before either side can reach him, his vision shifts to Coruscant burning, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Windu, all of them dying with Anakin in the center of it all, wielding a white lightsaber. As Anakin reaches out towards the Kyber crystal, the cave shudders violently. A blinding explosion of light bursts through the tunnels, knocking snow and shards down from the ceiling. Outside, the Jedi Masters feel the quake ripple across the planet. When Anakin grabs the crystal, all of the color inside it vanishes, leaving the crystal white. Grabbing it, he runs towards the door, escaping at the last possible moment. Anakin stumbles out of the collapsing cave, clutching a pure white crystal, the only youngling to emerge with something so rare. When he returned to Coruscant, the Jedi Council gathered to discuss what it meant. Many of the Masters were unsettled. Mace Windu believed it was dangerous. He said white crystals only existed when a red Sith crystal was purified, so if Anakin had found one, it must have once been used for darkness. Other Masters agreed, saying this was proof that Anakin was tied to the Sith. But Plo Koon defended him, suggesting that maybe the Force had chosen Anakin because his connection to the light was so strong that he could cleanse the crystal instantly. Yoda sat quietly before saying that the Force brought Anakin to them for a reason, and casting him aside would be against destiny, but that they must treat the matter with care. After much debate, the council decided that Anakin could not continue his training like a normal Padawan, and needed a new master. Obi-Wan was saddened but accepted it. Mace Windu was elected by the council to train Anakin from here on out. Anakin began his training under Mace Windu with intensity and focus. Windu was different from Obi-Wan. He was stern, precise, and unrelenting. He believed that Anakin needed discipline and that the boy's emotions could be dangerous if not controlled. Instead of shielding him from these emotions, Windu chose to confront them directly. He taught Anakin his variant of Form 7, known as the Pod, the most aggressive and dangerous form of lightsaber combat. Few Jedi could master it because it demanded not the denial of emotions, but the ability to channel them without falling. For Anakin, it was natural. He was fast, powerful, and gifted in combat. Windu pushed him harder than anyone else, drilling him for hours in the courtyards, in the training halls, and even in the temple's high balconies. Anakin learned to flow with the form's unpredictable strikes, turning his anger into speed and his frustration into precision. He became stronger and more skilled than almost anyone his own age, and even some older Padawans struggled to match him. But as his training grew, Windu begins to notice something disturbing. Every time Anakin got upset, every time anger slipped through his calm, his white lightsaber would flicker, and then, just for a moment, it would turn red. The first time it happened, both Anakin and Windu froze. It was subtle, but it was clear. They assumed it was a mistake, maybe something with the focusing lens or the hilt's construction. They rebuilt parts of the saber, checking the crystal again and again, but nothing changed. Each time Anakin lost control, the blade turned red. It unsettled Windu and frightened him, because he knew the meaning of red sabers. They belonged to the Sith. The more they examined the crystal, the stranger things became. Every time Anakin meditated with it or Windu asked him to focus on the Force, Anakin was pulled into visions. These visions were never the same. Sometimes he saw himself standing with dark robes, a Sith Lord, with the galaxy kneeling beneath him. Other times he saw himself surrounded by warmth, living peacefully with a family and children laughing around him. At other times he saw himself as the Grand Master of the Jedi Order, leading them into a new age. The visions confused him because they felt real, as if the crystal itself was showing him possible futures. Each vision left him shaken and unsettled. Windu took it as proof that the crystal was more than it seemed. They both knew there was something wrong with it, something tainted in its past. Anakin's training became not only about the skill with a lightsaber, but about control, about taming his own emotions so the crystal could not pull him away. The years passed, and by the time Anakin turned 16, he had become one of the most powerful Padawans in the temple. His dueling was unmatched, his command of the Force growing sharper, but the red flickers of his blade never stopped. Windu decided it was time to seek answers. He took Anakin to the Jedi archives to see one of the Jedi's most trusted Kyber scholars. The archivist examined the crystal carefully and explained what many suspected but had not said out loud. A white Kyber crystal is only created when a red Sith crystal has been purified by the light. The scholar admitted that he had no explanation for how it happened, only that the crystal had once been red, corrupted by the Sith, and somehow now showed pure white. This answer unsettled Windu and the council even more. If the crystal had belonged to a Sith, whose was it? How had it ended up in Ilum's sacred caves? No one could say. The records were incomplete, and the Sith had erased it from their history. The mystery of the white Kyber crystal became something no Jedi could solve. For Anakin, the lack of answers made him restless. He could not stop thinking about whose crystal it was, what darkness it had been tied to, and why the Force had brought it to him. As for Palpatine, he continued his manipulation of Anakin just like he did in the original timeline. Anakin had begun to feel isolated, different from the other Padawans, as if the crystal set him apart in a way that could never be undone. In his restlessness, he confided in Chancellor Palpatine, who always seemed willing to listen. Palpatine told him that he should not fear the crystal, that perhaps it had been waiting for him all along, that the fact that it was unlike any other crystal proved his destiny was greater than the council would ever admit. He encouraged Anakin to go deeper, to learn more, to embrace what the Jedi were too afraid to understand. His words sank into Anakin's mind, feeding the sense that he was both chosen and misunderstood, that his white blade was not a curse but a mark of fate. While Palpatine's voice grew stronger in his thoughts, Windu's training continued. He pressed Anakin into new trials, beyond simple dueling. They practiced in dangerous environments, fighting on moving platforms and across large engines of Jedi cruisers. Windu pushed him to hold back his strikes at the very moment of victory, to stop when his instincts screamed to finish the fight, to prove that he could master himself as much as his enemy. Anakin excelled in power and speed. Hey guys, over at Fantasy Sabers, for the entire month of September, we are giving away a free Xenopixel plastic saber with every order. Xenopixel sabers offer movie accurate sound, smooth swing effects, and customizable coloring, making now the perfect time to grab a free saber for an unbeatable Star Wars experience. As the years went on, Anakin and Palpatine grew extremely close, as the Chancellor felt like the only man who understood Anakin, the only person who even cared to listen to what he had to say. Being around Palpatine made Anakin feel like he wasn't a total disappointment, or a person that had to be carefully watched. With Palpatine, he was normal. That's what Anakin valued, and so whenever he could, he would always go and see the Chancellor. Palpatine became a father figure to Anakin, and before long, he was his closest friend. On one occasion when Anakin was 16 years old, Palpatine led Anakin down the lower levels of Coruscant into a place Anakin had never seen before. They slipped into a secret fighting ring where warriors clashed with blades, fists, and weapons of every kind. From the stands, Anakin watched match after match, his heart pounding with excitement. These fights were brutal, raw, nothing like the controlled duels at the temple. He loved it. Then the main event began, and a towering figure stepped into the pit carrying an electro staff, which was strong enough to block even a lightsaber. One after another, challengers fell before him until none dared to step forward. The champion raised his staff and called out for anyone brave enough to face him. Palpatine leaned close and whispered for Anakin to go. Without hesitation, Anakin dropped into the pit, igniting his white blade to gasps from the crowd. The duel was fast and dangerous, the electro staff clashing against the white lightsaber again and again. Anakin pressed hard, but the champion matched him and frustration began to rise. His anger flared and suddenly his blade flickered red. As everyone in the crowd began to cheer, Anakin froze as fear crept into him, but Palpatine's voice carried from the stands, telling him not to resist, to embrace it, to feel it. Anakin obeyed. His movements became faster, and the crowd roared as he overwhelmed the champion, driving him to the ground in defeat. The fight was over and his blade faded back to white. For the first time, he had tasted the dark, and it made him feel more alive than ever. From that night on, there was a new edge to him, a darker strength that would only grow. From here, Anakin continued his training with Windu and spent lots of time with Palpatine. The story would somewhat follow suit from here. When Anakin's 19, he is sent on a mission to protect Senator Padme Amidala, and it's here they fall in love and get married. Soon after, the Clone Wars began as war spread across the galaxy. The Clone Wars dragged on for 3 long years. Anakin spent most of his time away from Coruscant, leading troops into battle after battle with no end in sight. Whenever he returned home, he spent every moment he could with Padme. They moved in together, and to them, their life couldn't be more complete. But he also spent more and more time with Chancellor Palpatine, who always seemed to be waiting for him, ready to listen when no one else would. Palpatine praised him for his victories, told him that he was the strongest Jedi alive, and that the Council would never understand him the way that he did. Anakin began to believe it. On many occasions, he even served as Palpatine's personal bodyguard, traveling with him, guarding him in secret missions, and watching how the Chancellor controlled the galaxy. Over time, their bond grew stronger until by the end of the war, Anakin trusted Palpatine completely. He no longer questioned his advice. It was almost as if he had been conditioned, drawn into the Chancellor's hand without even realizing it. By the time of Revenge of the Sith, Palpatine had his plan completely ready. Anakin goes to Palpatine's office to inform him that General Grievous has been defeated. Palpatine smiled. The time to reveal himself had come. He tells Anakin there are truths that he could no longer hide, that he is Darth Sidious, Lord of the Sith. Anakin ignited his lightsaber and pointed it at Palpatine. That was his natural Jedi reaction, but then he inquired more. He asked Palpatine for proof. Palpatine leaned forward and told him that the white Kyber crystal in his lightsaber had once been his own lightsaber crystal. Anakin's heart dropped, and all made sense now. Palpatine explained that many years ago he bled that crystal red and wielded it himself, but when Anakin arrived at the Jedi Temple, he placed it deep within the Ilum caves, knowing the Force would guide Anakin to it. He told Anakin it was no accident, it was destiny. From the moment Anakin touched the crystal, his path had been set, the red calling out to him because it had always belonged to him. The more Palpatine spoke, the more the pieces fit together in Anakin's mind, and the more he felt the Council had lied, never trusting him, never preparing him for this truth. Palpatine told him the Jedi were afraid of him, that they would never understand his power, but under the Sith he could be free. He could protect Padme, and he could finally bring peace to the galaxy. Anakin fell to his knees. In that moment, he turned to the dark side and pledged himself to Palpatine. Sidious smiled and gave him his first mission, to go to Mustafar and wipe out the Separatist leaders hiding there, to end the war once and for all and prove his loyalty. Then the Jedi Order must fall. In this timeline, Palpatine makes Anakin go to Mustafar before executing Order 66, as he needed to know whether he could trust Anakin fully. In the original timeline, when Anakin killed Mace Windu, he had proved himself, but now that isn't the case. Before leaving Coruscant, Anakin went to see Padme. He told her the Chancellor had given him a final mission, one that would end the war forever. He explained the Separatist leaders were hiding on Mustafar, and that he had been chosen to destroy them. At first, Padme felt proud, believing that peace was finally within reach, but her hope quickly faded when Anakin continued. He said that when the Separatists were gone, the Jedi would also need to be dealt with, because they were traitors to the Republic. His voice was sharp and cold, nothing like the man she loved. Padme looked at him in shock, realizing that something was terribly wrong. She pressed him, asking what he meant, and Anakin admitted the truth. He told her that he had joined Palpatine, that the Jedi were liars, and that they had never trusted him, and that only Palpatine understood him. Padme broke down in tears. She saw that the kind and caring boy from Tatooine has been pulled into darkness. She knew that there was nothing that she could say to stop him now. Anakin kissed her on the head, turned and left for Mustafar, leaving her heartbroken and afraid. At this moment, Padme did the only thing she could think of. She went straight to Master Windu at the temple. There she confessed everything, her secret marriage to Anakin, what he had said, and how he had pledged himself to Palpatine, who was apparently the Sith Lord behind the Clone Wars. She begged Windu to not kill him, but to save him, because she still believed that she could bring him back. This would enrage Windu beyond belief. In this timeline, Windu had trained Anakin, and so he had failed him. It was his obligation to bring him back. Padme and Windu traveled to Mustafar, where they found Anakin standing on the landing platform. The Separatist leaders were already dead. Anakin had done it. When he turned to see them, his eyes were cold, filled with pride and anger. Padme stepped forward first, her voice trembling as she begged him to stop, to remember who he was, to remember the love they shared and the life they had dreamed of. Anakin shook his head and told him the Jedi were traitors, that with Palpatine, he could finally bring peace. Windu couldn't believe what had happened to his apprentice and begged him to see reason, to remember his training and focus on the light and not let the dark side consume him. Windu reminded him that this was the way of the pod, to feel the anger but not let it consume him. The Jedi Master took responsibility for this, saying that he should have understood how Anakin was feeling. When Mace apologized, Anakin snapped. It was like his heart was broken in pieces. He ignited his white lightsaber and rushed forward, swinging at Windu with all of his might. Mace simply defended and blocked, never striking to kill. Padme screamed for them both to stop. Between strikes, Anakin told Windu the truth, that his Kyber crystal used to be Palpatine's, which meant it was his destiny to join the dark side and save the galaxy. But Windu countered this, saying that the Kyber crystal chose him because the Force only knew that he had the strength to purify it, because of how much light is in him, not darkness. Padme cried out the same, saying she knew that the man she loved was still in there, that the Force had trusted him because he had enough goodness to save the galaxy. Anakin began to falter and Windu disarmed him. Anakin collapsed to the floor, his emotion pouring out as he realized he was wrong. In this moment, with Padme and Windu's help, Anakin turned back to the light side of the Force. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, Palpatine waited for hours to hear from Anakin, but he was radio silent. The Sith Lord was spitting with anger. He couldn't delay his plans any longer. The longer he waited, he risked people discovering his secret and the Jedi mobilizing their defenses. Palpatine opens his comlink and executes Order 66. He then personally gets the Coruscant Guard and marches to the Jedi Temple, destroying everything in his path. The Jedi at the temple sent out a message to all the Jedi in the galaxy, calling for help. Windu and Anakin listened from Mustafar as Anakin explained Palpatine's plan to use the clones against the Jedi. He thought it was already too late, but Windu told them they must go back now. Anakin and Windu rushed back to Coruscant, but when they reached the Jedi Temple, it was already burning. Smoke rose into the sky, blaster fire filled the air, and hundreds of clones were storming the gates. Jedi were fighting everywhere, some cut down in the halls, others trying to protect the younglings. The sound of battle was endless, sabers flashing against the endless wave of blaster bolts. Inside the Great Hall, Anakin and Windu saw a hooded figure moving through the crowd like a shadow, his red lightsaber cutting down Jedi one after another. It was Palpatine. They rushed to confront him. Sidious was furious that Anakin had returned to the light, but he sneered and told him that it no longer mattered, that the Jedi were finished. Anakin and Windu ignited their sabers and charged. The fight was fast and brutal, Palpatine's lightning crashing against their blades, his strike powerful and deadly, but together they held firm. Windu pressing with precision, while Anakin's white saber blazed with strength. Palpatine was no match for their combined strength, and as other Jedi joined from all sides, the Sith Lord fell, as Anakin delivered the final strike and killed him. Without Palpatine leading the clones, they faltered. Against all odds, the temple was defended and the Clone Wars were won by the Republic. The aftermath of the war saw many celebrations, but also recognized that there was a long road ahead. Padme was chosen as Supreme Chancellor and led the Republic into peace. Anakin stayed with the Jedi, his white lightsaber no longer feared, but honored as a symbol of hope and renewal. The Sith were gone, the Jedi endured, and Anakin finally understood the truth of his crystal. It had never been a curse, it was proof that he was meant to save the galaxy. Anakin and Padme lived happily ever after with their family. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Anakin Was Born in the Jedi Temple and What If Anakin Reached His Full Potential. Please check out Fantasy Sabers if you're looking for an affordable saber to add to your collection. We offer RGB, Xenopixel or Profi in various sizes and designs. Also check out our membership program to be able to watch our videos early. Thanks for watching and may the Force be with you.